चोपड़ा कहाँ है? Hello, Varuna. Can you hear me?
Yes, please, sir.
Yes. So I just got a message from Steven.
Okay.
He is finishing something. He will take 10 more minutes. What I
Okay.
would suggest is, in a minute or two, we will start.
Okay.
And then we will, you can finish the introduction. Thereafter, Mia will do her first part. And before we
Okay.
start the second part, you can invite Steven to speak.
Okay. So,
Will that be okay?
so I will introduce Mia first.
Introduce general introduction plus Mia's introduction and invite her to give a floor to her. And she
Yes.
will speak on the first part. And thereafter, before you enter the conversation, you can invite Steven to speak. And he will speak. Thereafter, you already crossed 6. I mean, 12:30 UK.
Okay. Greetings, everyone.
Recording in progress.
Greeting, everyone. It is a great pleasure to welcome you all for this insightful session organized by NIVAARAN along with Commonwealth Lawyers Association. NIVAARAN is a dedicated organization of mediators of Supreme Court of India. It is committed for advancing the practice of mediation in India and beyond. At NIVAARAN, our goal is to uphold the constitutional promise of justice to all and ensure access to justice at the doorstep regardless of economic differences. Our efforts in promoting mediation, online dispute resolution, and legal innovation enhances accessibility, efficiency, and impact of mediation process in the lives of people. Our initiative encompasses workshops, training programs, webinars, and research to promote mediation as a fair, empathetic process that fosters restoration of relationships. So, as we, Mia is guest speaker here. Her name is Mia Pirie. Mia is a renowned mediator, facilitator, and a coach known globally for her expertise in handling complex disputes and high-stake conversations. She began her career as a solicitor in top London law firm before transitioning to mediation, where she has worked with government, think tanks, and international organizations such as G7. She has advised the US Department of Energy on negotiation strategies, contributed to energy efficiency programs in the UK and the US, and has been honored as the Independent Mediator of the Year multiple times. She has also spoken at Chatham House on conflict resolution. She hosted European Commission's Business Award for Environment. She was recognized as an inspiration woman by We Are the City. Beyond high-level mediation, Mia is passionate about making mediation skills accessible to everyone. As conversation coach, she helps people apply mediation techniques in everyday life. Her TEDx talk, Polarization, the Dark Side of Compassion, explores how mediation can help bridge divides in today's increasing polarized world. Today, she will be taking us through two key discussions: how to navigate difficult personalities in mediation and India's potential as a global mediation powerhouse. And very importantly, I want to tell you that Mia has a great connection with India. Half of the year, her mother stays in Kerala, where she explores the yogic part of our Indian culture. Over to you, Mia.
Thank you so much for your lovely, lovely introduction, Varuna. And thank you for having me here. It's a great honor to be here today. So we're going to do something a little bit unusual. I'll share my slides, but I think we're going to do something a little bit unusual. We're going to combine some unusual topics. So here we are. We're combining navigating difficult personalities and India's rise as a mediation powerhouse. So basically, we're combining a skill and an idea that we want to explore a little bit more. So I think we're going to start with the skill, and then we're going to move on to a conversation between Varuna and I, and then hopefully expand the conversation to all of you. And what I always hope to do is to really help people to think differently and to see the world differently. So what we may be doing is we may be learning things that you already know, but hopefully we'll learn them in a different light, or we'll look at them in a different light. So this is a little bit of what Varuna said, some of the organizations I've worked with. And this is me and my mother. So why am I showing you a picture of me and my mother? I was 17 there. We were on a trip to China. And I think the reason I am fascinated by people and difficult and interesting personalities is because my mother is one of the most amazing people I know. And she can be a little tricky to deal with sometimes. So my passion for learning how to deal with complex personalities, complex people, comes really from my childhood and from wanting to relate even better to my mom. So I wanted to ask you to put in the chat maybe a couple of words about who you are as a mediator. How do you see yourself as a mediator? What are the skills and qualities that we have as a mediator? So maybe just type in one skill or quality that you think mediators have or should have. I don't know if I can see those right now. Okay. Okay. We'll come back to that. Oh, persuasion and empathy. We've got involved and concerned. Great. So a number of skills that we have as mediators. And the main skill that I'm going to be talking about, I'm going to talk about a lot of skills, but the main skill I'm going to talk about is our attitude and our mindset, because that to me is what's fundamental, and it has an effect on absolutely everything. It has an effect on each of the parties. It has an effect on the focus of the mediation, and it has an effect on can we help resolve the conflict or not. So we'll talk about power and difficult people, and we're going to start by seeing if we can understand power. What is power? So I want to ask you, wherever you are in the world, I know you're many places, I want to ask you to stand up for a moment. So can everyone just stand up for a minute, wherever you are, and then close your hands like this and open your hands like this. Excellent. And then sit down again. And then I'm going to ask you if you would be willing to get on the floor where you are and do some push-ups, some press-ups. So what we see from the people that we saw is that power is a relationship. So because I'm speaking, I have some power. And people are willing to do in a room, if they're in the same room as me, most people stand up. Maybe when you're online, you didn't stand up because maybe I can't see you. But most people are not willing to do some push-ups. So there's only so far we can persuade people, because power is a relationship. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to get people and support people in working together. And often when we have what we think of as a difficult personality, we start to feel a power struggle. And we can feel, as a mediator, we can feel this power struggle. So we have to understand that power is not a zero-sum game. Power is not I have power or you have power, unless it's 1 minus 1. If I try and take away your power, I'm taking away my power and I'm making the mediation worse. So power is cumulative. We want to be pulling in the same direction, and we want to be building something together. So my next question for you is, what is a difficult personality? What does that mean? What do we mean when we talk about a difficult person or a difficult personality? So please pop in the chat what you think of as a difficult person or a difficult personality. And someone has said under one of the attitudes of a mediator that empathy is important. And that's right, empathy is very important. So what do we think of, if you either put it in the chat or think about what is difficult to get along with, someone is saying, what does that mean? And I think when we look at difficult personalities, we have to think, what are we trying to do with them? We've got low on empathy, a person who's not willing to accept the other person's point of view, closed-minded. All of these things are things that we think of as a difficult personality. And I have put this as an image, difficult to understand, someone says. So I put this as an image of a difficult personality. And we are trying, when we think of someone as difficult, we are trying to push them or change them. Someone says not able to communicate freely. So all of these things can be difficult. We're trying to push a person or change them or shift them. But what if it has more to do with us than with them? What if we're coming from the wrong position? Like this little stick man, he's kneeling, and then when he stands, he has more power. So sometimes, Sonal says, conformity issues as well. Yeah, so many things that we find difficult. But another person is not difficult. They're just themselves. And so I like to shift to thinking, this is not a difficult person. It's a question of how do I relate to this person? Because otherwise we can begin to polarize with our clients. We think, oh, this person is not able to communicate freely, has conformity issues, all of the things that you've put in the chat that are really great things that we find difficult. But why are we putting that on the other person? How do we shift that? And so then we don't just have a polarity between our clients. Sometimes we end up polarizing with our clients. So we're against our clients. And if you've seen my TEDx talk, you'll know that I'm very passionate about polarization. So we're trying to control them, and we're maybe seeing them as the problem. And what we need to be doing as mediators is actually trying to empower them and not trying to control them, and allowing them to feel a little uncomfortable. So I want you to take a moment and just bear with me. I work a little differently. So take a moment and reflect on the last time you were in conflict with someone. And just see if you can remember how easy or how hard it was to listen to the other person. How easy it was to empathize with them. And how easy or difficult it was to care about their feelings. And notice if you felt open or closed. And if you can, those of you who are participating beautifully in the chat, if you can just add a couple of words, what was it like? Was it easy? Was it hard? Were you closed? Were you open? Was it easy to listen to them? Any of those things. What does it feel like to be in conflict? So Shirin says, I was closed. Yeah, most of us are definitely closed. So now it says overwhelmingly emotionally. Yeah, felt attacked and judged, a mixed bag, a mix of status, frustrated. Amazing. So these are all things that come up for people when they're in conflict, which make them seem like they're difficult. But maybe they're not. Maybe they're just in conflict. And so when we're in conflict, we feel under attack, like the buffalo in this picture being attacked by the lion. And what happens when we feel under attack is we go into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mode. So those are our defense mechanism. So fight, we're familiar with, we get argumentative, that can seem difficult. Flight, we shut down, that can sometimes seem easier. Freeze, we freeze, we don't move. And fawn can actually seem like it's nice, like people are trying to be nice, but it's not really genuine. And when all of that happens, what is really happening is people are becoming disempowered and they lack recognition. And what that means is they dehumanize people. And that's something you will have seen if you heard my TEDx, was a lot about how we dehumanize and how can we reconnect. So our job really is to help people to calm down their nervous systems. That's really a huge part of our job as a mediator. It's to make them feel empowered, make them recognize each other and humanize. And we want to support our clients in doing this. So I'm going to tell you a little story about a neuroscientist that I went to a lecture on neuroscience many years ago. And this woman was talking about the neuroscience of mediation. And she said, you know, when you work with difficult personalities, their neural networks are fixed. They're not easy to shift. So it's very difficult to change them in their interactions. And I thought that's really interesting that this woman was not a mediator. This is not my experience. If you stay in the same patterns that they've been in the same patterns that they've been used to, yes, it's very difficult. If you respond in the way that they expect you to respond, it's very difficult. But our job is to be different, is to have a different attitude, a different mindset. And so we might respond differently. And when we respond differently, I find that people who seem difficult to us can shift. So I'm going to give you an example of that in a bit. But first, let's look at why people are difficult. There are a number of reasons why people appear difficult. The first is just that they're dysregulated and feeling disempowered, which most of us are in conflict. So it's our job as mediators to know how to help people to calm down. I don't know if we lost connection there, but to know how to help people to calm down, to regulate. And second reason is maybe they have some big issue. Maybe they have some personality disorder or something like this. Oh, we have someone who's come. Hello. Hi. Okay, you're back on mute. Thank you. So yeah, so we become disempowered, and sometimes people have some significant issue. And a South African mediator friend of mine told me this third one, which I really love, and it's sometimes they're just right. Sometimes they're right and they know they're right, and so they're not moving. They're being a little bit intractable. So I want to take you very briefly through a psychological theory, because we promised you some psychology in this lecture, and then we're going to go and make it practical. So there's a theory called the polyvagal theory. And this is a slide from me and a doctor I sometimes work with, Dr. Susanna Peche. And it's about how this theory, what happens. So when we're in this fight-flight mode, we disconnect and we're not mobilized. So that, or we're chaotic or we're frozen. And we need to change that. And part of this theory is co-regulation. We can help each other regulate. And I will explain how this works. But basically, as human beings, we have a drive to survive, which might make us run away or fight. And we have this desire to connect. And we want to nurture the desire to connect. So when we are with someone, we pick up on their body language. And you know, you've probably entered into a room at some point and felt that you knew there was something uncomfortable there. And you felt that tension. So we pick up on these cues from people. If someone's unmuted again, would it be okay to mute for now? And then we can all talk later. That would be really great. So basically, I want to show you some photographs and just notice how you feel in your body, how you feel emotionally when you see these different photographs. So basically, we look at a photograph, we look at a person, and we have a response, a fear response, a compassion response, an empathy response. So that's someone who's shut down, who's in freeze. And then this is a picture of what safety might look like. Don't know if you can see this. So sometimes as mediators, we go in to this scenario and we are like this little boy at the top of this hill. We are anxious because we are finding these people difficult. And then we go into this critical parent-child because we're trying to control. And what we actually want to be doing is we want to be developing an adult-adult relationship. That's really, really important. So we want to be not looking down on people, not trying to control them, but we want to be strong and treating them as if they're strong. Because as much as other people's body language, etc., influences us, our body language, our nervous system can regulate them. And so this way, we move away from trying to do this. We move away from our polarization towards being on the same side as them. And we become what I call, and this is really important, we become the anchor energy. And that is our job as mediators. Our job is when everyone else is in chaos, when everyone else is shut down, angry, whatever, that we don't shift our energy into their energy, that we stay calm, stable, open, and receptive to them as human beings. And that can require a lot of work on ourselves because it's very easy to go into our patterns. So we said that our attitude is a multiplier. And so when we stay calm, steady, clear, kind, strong, we shift every element of the mediation. And everything in our life is related to that as well. So we need to meet our clients where they are. Instead of trying to get them to be who we are, we do that through our energy and through the way we interact with them. And I'm going to give you a little example of just meeting your clients where they are in a difficult mediation. And I'll give you another example later. So One of the most difficult mediations that I've ever done was with a religious organization. And it's, of course, when one side is appealing to God, I do not have the power to put myself in God's shoes and say, this is not what God says. So what do I do in that situation when I'm feeling stuck and they're telling me, God would not want me to negotiate with this person. God would not want me to compromise. So I spent a while reflecting and I thought, okay, I don't have this authority, but who within their religion, who within their framework might have this authority that I can appeal to? So I printed out a copy of a lecture from someone who was of a similar faith to them, not the same faith, but who was very respected, who talked about how basically peace is offensive, but how if we want to create peace, we have to make compromises that feel uncomfortable. I highlighted many portions of it, and I left this lecture with them. And I came back half an hour later, and they said, okay, we'll compromise. So I had to speak to them in their language, but I didn't have the authority. So I had to find an authority that was big enough to speak with them. So I'm going to tell you what I believe, what I've come to believe is the secret ingredient to mediating and to having difficult conversations. And it's not something you hear about very much. For me, the secret ingredient that we want to instill in ourselves and in our clients is self-esteem. And most people say to me, either they recognize that they don't have really high self-esteem in all situations. It's not a constant, it varies in situations. Or sometimes they tell me that they're very sure that they have high self-esteem. And of course, you don't have to have this conversation overtly with your client. In fact, often it's better not to have this conversation overtly with your client, but it's important to understand what's going on beneath the surface. And we confuse self-esteem and self-confidence, and they're very different. So the picture of the woman is more self-esteem and the picture of Superman is more self-confidence. So what's the difference? We want both, but they're different. Confidence says you've got this. Confidence is about skills. Or in the words of Barack Obama, confidence says, yes, we can do this. And self-esteem is about how you feel about yourself and other people. And self-esteem says, I matter no matter what. And even people who are very confident have a lot of insecurity, or who appear very confident. And I like to put this up from Ben Affleck, because Ben Affleck seems like someone who would be very confident, but he's saying insecurity is a natural state of the human condition. All of us feel insecure sometimes, including mediators. So what is not self-esteem? Not self-esteem is when we feel ashamed, when we feel one down, and we're very familiar with that. We think that's what we feel as insecurity, but what we don't think of as insecurity often is one up. So whenever someone is thinking that they're better than someone else, that is also a sign of insecurity. And as mediators, we need to be able to see that. We need to understand that when we're grandiose, one up, or insecure, one down, we're still insecure. And real self-esteem says same as. I matter no matter what, and you matter no matter what. That's true self-esteem. So with this knowledge, we want to work on ourselves, or at least be aware of in the moment when we come out of security, when we feel unstable, because when we feel unstable, we can make our clients feel unstable. So we have to learn to regulate ourselves to help them regulate. And as I said, we need to meet our clients where they are with our attitude. So I'm going to tell you a little story about a facilitation that I did in Turkey, not a mediation. And for a while, for 4 years, I think, I worked helping NGOs, politicians, and think tanks have discussions around the refugee crisis in Europe. And this is a group of those people going around a refugee camp in Istanbul. This is a picture of a school that we went round to, a refugee school with a slide. And then we had discussions in small groups. And at the beginning, I put people in small groups around tables, like in this picture. And this woman stood up in front of the whole room. She was a very powerful woman in the group. And she said to me, "I don't like this." She said, "I don't want to sit around in small groups. We normally sit in one horseshoe shape, and that's how I like to do it." And so that is an example of something that could have seemed like a difficult personality. So what did I do? I stayed with a similar level of energy to her, and I stayed open and friendly. And I said, "Wow, I'm hearing that you really don't like this." So I really validated what she was saying. I'm hearing that this is different than what you're used to, and that normally you sit in a horseshoe and you much prefer that. So at this moment, I validated her, I've empathized with her, and she said yes. And so we're now like on the same page. And I said to her, "Look, in my experience, it works really well in these small groups around small tables. Would you be willing to try it for half an hour? And if you still don't like it, we'll look at doing something different." And she said yes. And since that moment, she and I get on very well. And she was very happy the rest of the day to spend time around small tables like this. So it's to do with the energy and the way that we meet what people are saying and how we interact them. So what the neuroscientist was saying was, when you have someone with that personality, you can't change them. It's going to be a difficult interaction. But you can change you. And when you change you, they change their response. It's not a guarantee, but it very often happens that way. So I'm going to just go through some tools, and you will be familiar with many of them. Varuna, did you want to say something? No. You will be familiar with many of them. Some of them are very basic mediation tools. Some of them are just basic tools. And these are tools that can help you to mediate better in difficult situations. But they all start with this different mindset, this different attitude, and with you being calm and clear in yourself. So the first is just to breathe, and learning to breathe properly, to breathe through the diaphragm into the belly. We don't actually breathe into the belly, but it feels like that. That helps to relax our nervous system. So breath can be really useful. Meditation also, and just being aware of what's going on in us. Learning how to listen at different levels is really important. And I'm not going to go through this in detail, but basically we listen on a spectrum from closed to open. And we want to be really, really open, like I was to that woman, to really listening to her fully without judgment, even if it feels uncomfortable to us. So the bottom level is listening without interest. We might listen to confirm what we already know. We might listen for specifics. I'm often guilty of that. When I ask a question, I want a very specific answer. So we all do all of this less good listening. In business, normally the highest level of listening is considered listening to learn. But as mediators, I believe we're called to listen at an even higher level. And that is to listen generously. What does that mean? Listening generously means we're listening to the person. Oh, sorry, the slide went by itself. We're listening to the person. We're listening to what they're saying. We're also listening to their feelings. We're creating space for them. And that way we're going to be able to help regulate their emotions. And I had a quick chat with Varuna before we came on today, and she was telling me about some difficult sort of mediations between people who got into fights in personal sort of relationships. And so I thought I would add just a quick something. This is something you can go into in more detail later yourself, but about the drama triangle. So often when we've got an issue with people, we put ourselves in these roles: victim, persecutor, and rescuer. And so most people, there's a book by Gay Hendricks called The Big Leap, and he says that conflict is a race to the victim. So often we're arguing and we're just saying, I'm the victim, you do this, this other person does this to me, and it's all about that. So often everyone is feeling like the victim on both sides, and no one is feeling like the persecutor. So we put people in these roles, and as mediators, we can feel ourselves as the rescuer, and they can be looking to us as the rescuer. So this is a really important dynamic to understand that is involved in a lot of conflicts. So the whole partnership have a brilliant turnaround to these. This is the unhealthy pattern. But if we want to turn this pattern into a healthy pattern, we need to shift those places. So the victim becomes the archetype of curiosity, the curious, open-minded child. The persecutor becomes the brave warrior, and the rescuer, which often the mediator can feel in that position, becomes the wise elder who has compassion and perspective. So I'm just touching on this. We could spend a whole hour or a whole day on this, but we need to see that we can start from here, and our job is to help people move to here. And a very important, I'm going to skip the next slides, but I just want to say that there's a very important element, which is our tone. And if we are congruent with our tone, if we are not comfortable, our tone and our body language often gives us away. So we really have to work. I come back again and again, we have to work on ourselves so that we can be calm and relaxed. And as a very senior mediator, when I was younger, told me, you need to take your seat as a mediator. You need to really feel in that position and feel comfortable in that position. So that was the slides I was going to use on that. And so it's important to be really authentic when you move in as a mediator, and to be able to be yourself appropriately and not be putting on a work face. And that's how we're going to build trust. And then we can be adaptable as ourselves. And there's some archetypes that it's worth knowing about. And you may want to read a book on this, because again, we could spend a whole day on this. There's a book called Rapport by Emily Allison and Lawrence Allison. And they talk, that they're husband and wife, and they talk about these different sort of animal forms that we kind of take on. And so the very strong and dogmatic one can be the T-Rex. The lion is the one who wants to be in control. The monkey is kind of friendly and engaging, and the mouse is humble, seeking guidance. And we need to be able to shapeshift as mediators between those different roles so that we can meet people. So when someone is being T-Rex, you need to really be able to listen to them and let them finish and validate them and reflect back what they've said. But whilst you're listening, you're humble, seeking guidance. You're the mouse. But then you can shift to being strong and concise like them when they've stopped talking. So we want to learn to shift between these things. And we want to learn to get really comfortable with difference. That it's really okay if people are disagreeing completely. It's really okay if people see the situation differently. It's really okay if they don't like each other. Our job is to be okay with that difference. And it's okay if they feel very difficult to us. We need to remain comfortable. And that way we move away from polarization. We can be tentative. We check in with them. And I used to think that being tentative was a really bad thing. And we need to be in this quadrant in radical candor. So we need to move away from ruinous empathy and obnoxious aggression. So when we're overly nice, we're in ruinous empathy. And when we're aggressive, we're in obnoxious aggression. And we have to be trusted. We have to be right in the center there. Strong, clear, adult. And then we're all very familiar with reflecting back what we've heard. And that is a really great way of validating. So I've gone through a lot. And maybe just pop in the chat anything that you think you might want to change or anything that you might have taken away from this. And please do stay in touch. So we're going to shift and hear from, well, have a conversation with Varuna and then hear from you all. But maybe pop in the chat one thing that you might have taken from that whirlwind tour that I gave you of difficult personalities. So Varuna and I are going to have a quick chat. Can we
thank you, Mia.
Yeah.
So there is a bit of detour in our conversation. You'll have to wait for 5-7 minutes as we have to welcome Mr. Steven Thiru.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So we are honored to have you with us, Mr. Steven Thiru, President of Commonwealth Lawyer Association, a highly respected legal professional. Mr. Thiru is distinguished senior litigation lawyer and the managing partner of Messrs. Steven Thiru and Sudhar Partnership in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. With over 32 years of experience, he specializes in administrative, constitutional, commercial, corporate, and employment laws. He regularly appears before Malaysia's Superior and Appellate Court. His expertise has earned him multiple recognitions, including being named a leading individual for dispute resolution by Legal 500 Asia Pacific, a litigation star by Benchmark Litigation Asia Pacific. Recently, he was inducted into the Hall of Fame Pacific 2025, a champion of legal excellence. He has served as 31st President of Malaysia Bar and is currently Vice President of Law Asia. His leadership in the Commonwealth Lawyers Association, particularly in fostering global collaboration among bar associations, has made a significant impact on the legal profession worldwide. Mr. Thiru, we are truly honored to have you with us today, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts. Welcome.
Thank you, Varuna. Thank you
I
very
can
much.
go on and on, but I have to stop you.
Please would. I think describing me as a detour was sufficient. And hello, Mia. Nice to meet you on screen. And may I bring greetings? Yes. May I bring greetings?
Lovely to meet you too.
Yeah.
We're very happy to have you.
And to all the participants here, please accept my apologies. I'm in the middle of a hearing and it just overshot for a bit, so I couldn't actually come on in time. So greetings and to all my distinguished colleagues here, particularly those from India. As you know, the CLA promotes the administration of justice throughout the Commonwealth, and our overriding mission is to uphold and champion the rule of law, human rights, access of justice, and constitutionalism. And in alignment with these principles, particularly access to justice, we have embarked on numerous activities and initiatives in the recent years to promote awareness of mediation in the dispute resolution process. And our Honorary Life President, Mr. Santan Krishnan, is a distinguished individual who has actively been involved in many of these activities. And may I here go on record for the the CLA, and to thank him for his efforts. Ladies and gentlemen, historically, the modern judicial system in many Commonwealth nations took root in and evolved from the English adversarial legal system. However, since time immemorial, mediation, the act of mediating as a means to resolve disputes, has been an integral part of human society. It was the traditional method of conflict resolution in communities in many parts of the Commonwealth. For example, in my country, Malaysia, in the 1600s, the villages they were administered by what is known as a headman, and he had a responsibility of handling dispute resolution. And in documents that date to the 1900s, I'll quote, he talks to each party separately, listened to each, suggested some concessions and reallocations. If this failed, he would in turn ask each disputant to demonstrate respect for the leader's relationship with the other by following the leader's suggestions, unquote. So you already had that. And over the past decades, the practice of mediation has filtered across the globe, driven by a growing consensus that it has the potential to reduce pressure on courts, lower costs for parties, and help them reach settlements in a speedier and a more amicable manner than in a court-adjudicated dispute system. A significant milestone has been the adoption of the UN Convention on International Settlement Agreements Resulting from Mediation, also known as the Singapore Convention on Mediation, which came into force in 2020 and aims to facilitate international trade and commerce by promoting mediation as an effective means to resolve disputes in cross-border commercial transactions. India has recently enacted the Mediation Act of 2023, formally recognizing and institutionalizing mediation within a legal framework to further promote and facilitate its adoption. An emerging trend has been the progressive viewing of mediation, not as a substitute for litigation, but critically as an essential component of the dispute resolution process broadly. As the India Supreme Court stated in the landmark Patel automation case, which upheld pre-institution mediation under Section 12, capital A of the Commercial Courts Act of 2015, and I quote, mediation offers a completely new approach to attaining the goal of justice, a win-win situation resulting from assigning a greater role to the parties themselves. With no doubt, a spirit of accommodation represents a better and what more in the era of the docket explosion, the only meaningful choice, unquote. We must shift the perception that may be held by the public and in our communities that litigation is the only and ultimate form of conflict resolution. The spirit of accommodation also plays out in the diverse areas of commercial disputes where greater complexity demands a broader and more flexible approach. While mediation is not a panacea for all our ills, it has the benefit of offering a more nuanced approach that also helps preserve business relationships and protect market reputation. With these in mind, as counsel, questions as these may arise. How do we embrace a collaborative approach while managing the individual needs and expectations of our client? How do we build trust and engagement amongst parties who may be reluctant to the process? What are the opportunities ahead for you in India and for the rest of the world? These are some of the key questions and considerations, I think, which you may well be exploring today. I wish to conclude with the following reflection by Mahatma Gandhi on one of his early cases in 1893 involving two merchants and a dispute over £40,000 worth of promissory notes, in which he successfully persuaded the parties to opt for arbitration. I quote, I had learned to find out the better side of human nature and to enter men's hearts. I realized that the true function of a lawyer was to unite parties riven asunder. The lesson was so indelibly burnt into me that a large part of my time during the 20 years of my practice as a lawyer was occupied in bringing about private compromises of hundreds of cases. I lost nothing thereby, not even money, certainly not my soul, unquote. I wish you an insightful and enriching session as it continues. I thank you for participating in this, and I hope you will derive tremendous benefit from this, which will help you in your individual practices. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Thiru, for your kind words. Mia, are you there? Mia, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you so much. And I feel like I want to say thank you also to the court for delaying you just a little bit, because I feel like your presentation has come at really the perfect time, because it makes the perfect transition. So thank you very much. That was fascinating and wonderful.
So
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you for taking out time, Mr. Thiru. Mia, as we have to continue with our discussion, the second part is that can India become a global mediation powerhouse?
Yes. So I wanted to just start by saying that obviously I'm not Indian. I'm not an expert on India. I love India as an outsider. But when I was kindly asked to speak today, this came up as a topic that I just found so exciting. So this is really to start a conversation. And so Verna and I have spoken a little bit, and we're going to start the conversation. And I felt that NIVAARAN is the perfect sort of organization to have this conversation in, because of their wonderful vision and their vision for propagating mediation, and also because of everything that Steven just said about the importance of mediation, and the importance of mediation being so accessible and really part of the justice system. So we're gonna, can mediation be can India be a mediation powerhouse? So that's where we're going to start, I guess. And from my perspective, sometimes as an outsider, we can see things that we don't see as an insider, and vice versa. India's roots are very much in mediation, in peaceful conflict resolution. And as I was talking with Varuna, I started talking about Gandhi, but Varuna went way further back. Do you want to say who you brought in, Varuna?
Yeah, it was Lord Krishna when he went as a peace messenger to put the conflict between the brothers to rest by asking for just 5 villages to end the conflict, and he was denied that, and which led to Mahabharata. Yes.
And so you were talking about that, so deep roots, very ancient roots in conflict resolution. So from my perspective, to the outside world, India seems like a place that could be at least an important voice for mediation. Add to that the global shifts that are happening in the world, and the fact that India's court system is clogged up with, I think, as of 2024, 45 million cases that need to be attended to. Mediation could be a really powerful tool within India, and to make India a hub for mediation. Did you want to add to that, Varuna?
Yeah. So as we are seeing that the government is all the time talking of ease of doing business. So ease of business, doing business includes ease of conflict management. If the companies which are coming, as we are seeing that many of the top business houses are wanting to do their productions in India. If the laws are, if they are not able to acquire land, if they're not able to manage their workers, if they're not able to, resolve their conflicts of import and export in a quicker manner, it would be difficult for India to project as ease of doing business. So it is important to have a conflict management system in place, which is easier. And if a settlement that is arrived at in India should be a settlement which is implementable in all the countries which are signatory to the Singapore Convention. So we need to step up to have a system in place which is faster and cost-effective and easily implementable. So and not open to a lot of appeals and further litigation unless absolutely necessary. So it is very, very important. So it is integral part of growth of trade and commerce in India. That is what I feel.
Yes, so as India's growing, it becomes more and more important that it has a system that supports this growth, a legal system, including a functioning mediation system. And I was going to ask you to tell us a little bit about how matters come to mediation in India at the moment.
Basically, mostly we have court annexed mediation system. We have empaneled mediators in Supreme Court with a hierarchy of all the courts, like from district courts to High Court and to Supreme Court. We have mediators who are there. And legislature is also supporting by having a mediation act in place, but the complete thing has not yet been implemented. So we are waiting for Mediation Council of India to be in place so that the private mediation can take off in India. No doubt there are private mediations which are taking place. And we do take help of Arbitration and Conciliation Act to have a binding agreement in place. But still, a little, time more is left. I think our patience as mediator is being tried to get to that private mediation sector where we can have ad hoc mediations and private institutions coming.
Hello? Bruna, I think you're muted, and I think yes, perfect. Yeah. Your internet connection dropped for a minute, but now it's back.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. So, a lot is being done, but a little bit is left, and we are hoping that we get the Mediation Act implemented so that private mediation can take place, and the good mediators who are accredited, and there is a system for imparting mediation trainings is in place. So that is what we are looking at, what we are waiting for right now. And
so you can keep the standards high. And I think
yes.
we were talking about that you had thought about mandatory mediation in India, but that there had been issues with the idea of mandatory mediation. Is that right?
Yes. So what conflict comes is that does mandatory mediation take away the voluntariness of the process? So somewhere there is a small hitch where it is felt that if you will have certain matters, like you just told me, Mia, that small claims have been mandatorily now been told to be mediated before going for litigation in UK. If this same way, there are some mandatory matters where which have to be mediated before going for litigation, before going for litigation. So then it will take away a big block of matters away from litigation, and it will be settled much faster.
Yeah.
So this conflict of voluntariness and compulsory has to be understood in a liberal manner, as mandatory does not mean that the person has to go for mediation. They just go for mediation, but they can leave if they are not comfortable or they are not willing to be participating. So that is what my understanding is.
Yeah. So, I mean, it took a long time to get any mandatory mediation in the UK, and we had a lot of discussions about it along the way. And now it started at sort of at the bottom with mandatory mediation for small claims, so claims up to £10,000. And it's also a different type of mediation. It's not like a full mediation like we have, and we talked, Varuna, about how our mediation, what's sort of normal mediation in India and in the UK might be a little bit different. And when I say the UK, I should really be saying England and Wales, because we have this division. But yeah, so we have this mandatory mediation in the sort of smaller claims now. And we've had a lot of discussion about whether mediation breaches the right to a free trial and stuff like that. But realistically, there's a lot of hurdles that people have to go through before going to court. There's a lot of formalities and process, and this can become another part of the process. And we have a new case recently from 2023, I think, Churchill, which really clarifies that if a court sort of turns people towards mediation, that's not a breach of their rights to have a trial, and that in fact it can be unreasonable for people to refuse to mediate, and there can be consequences to that if they end up litigating and they refuse to mediate. So this is the sort of some of the recent case law, and as a result of some of the case law, we've changed our civil procedure rules to put more of a focus on mediation. But one of the things that Varuna and I talked about before is that mediation in India can take up to 90 days or 180 days. And so I can see that maybe you need a potentially shorter process to be mandatory, because otherwise maybe you are delaying the court procedure. I don't know what you think about that.
Yes, I was shadowing a mediation in Canada, and we started at 11 and we concluded by 7 in the evening. So it was a one-day process. But, in India, people come from, far off places, and India is a vast country as far as like territory is concerned. So it is difficult for them to, stay and get the matter mediated. Probably this time that they get, they are able to, come back and join. And now that we have, mediation through video conferencing, so which is also a very helpful tool right now. So, but definitely 90 days or 180-day process is like, quite a bit, so maybe it can be shorter. Yes.
We have some questions in the chat. Do we want to go to the difficulty? Where do we want to go, Varuna? I'm in your hands.
Yes, we can take up the questions. I think we can unmute them and also ask the questions from the chat box. Anybody has questions, please feel free to raise your hand and you'll be unmuted and you can participate. And yes, please.
So Thankachan says awareness about mediation is still very limited in India. India has a long way to go before it can become a global mediation, global power in mediation. I think that's true. I think globally awareness about mediation is low, and I think there are many reasons for that. And I think part of the reason is mediators seem to fall in love with mediation, but no one else is really interested in it. So we're not sufficiently selling the benefits of it. And I think we need to make that clear. And I think people struggle to find a difference between negotiation and mediation. And there is a huge difference. And we have to be able to show them the added value. And I think part of the added value is in just at the most simple level, if we don't get even into difficult personalities and things like that. Oh, am I frozen? No, I'm back. At the most simple level, one of the difficulties or one of the differences is that when we talk to one party and then we talk to another party, we have more information and we can see solutions that they can't see. And we might not suggest those solutions, but we, knowing that, we can do our job and help them to find those solutions. I don't know if you want to add anything on that, Bruna.
No, that's good. So we have another question. I believe that voluntary nature stays intact even if there is a mandatory, that is by Shireen, intact even if there is a mandatory pre-lit mediation, since decision to settle is of parties. Yes.
Yes, I think we agree with you.
Yes.
That's
recording in
litigation.
progress.
It might not be. It might be that you just walk away, but generally, and I think sometimes actually knowing that there's a